Let's look more closely now at the reasoning perhaps behind a military move. Retired four-star General Jack Keane is a Fox News military analyst. He is former Vice Chief of the Army, currently chairman of the Institute for the Study of War. Thanks for being here, General Keane.
Good to be here, Brett.
First of all, we haven't seen the intelligence laid out from the administration as of yet. Is there any doubt in your mind, knowing what you know about Syria, knowing what you know about Assad, that these chemical weapons were used by him and not by the rebels to somehow spur some action by the U.S. and its allies?
No, there's no doubt in my mind. Listen, the rebels moved into East Damascus about 3 weeks ago. Assad pounded them with artillery, with mortars, and also with attack aircraft. He could not dislodge them. They received a weapon shipment just a number of days prior to the use of chemical weapons. He went after them with the next weapon to try to be successful, knowing how important Damascus is to him and the center of gravity it is to the entire campaign. So that's why he's using chemical weapons. His calculation, though, is that we would either, one, not respond because we have not to date, or number two, if we did, it would be minimal and it would not hurt his military capabilities.
You think there's a risk in responding just for a punishment strike as opposed to some strategic, tactical maneuver that takes out Assad and his capabilities?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, we cannot topple the regime using standoff weapons. I'm not suggesting that. But a strategic view of this, what are we trying to accomplish here? One of those goals would be to help topple the regime, which is a stated goal of the administration, provide arms to the rebels, lethal arms that they desperately need, much more than small arms, and number two, go after a significant military capability. The most vulnerable military capability he has, Brett, is his air power. There's 20 airfields, only 6 of them are primary. He only has about 100 aircraft. We can take down those airfields, the aircraft on them, also the munitions, the fuel, the warehouses that the Iranians and Russians are using to resupply them. We can do all of that. That would be a significant degradation of his capability and something he isn't bargaining for. He is not expecting to lose his air power over the use of chemical weapons.
But there are very few people in this town who know the military who believe that this administration is going to do that. Do you believe they'd go that far?
I would hope they would. My judgment is they probably would not. They have a tendency to look at the minimal amount of risk involved. Frankly, what it would take to do what I just suggested can be done in a couple of nights. And it doesn't take that much more than scattering cruise missiles around the country at other targets that may not be as significant. The impact, Brett, is this. I know for a fact from my own contacts inside Syria with the opposition forces, I mean, they have high expectations because this is the first time anybody's done anything to help them. And if all we do is something symbolic, they'll be devastated by it.
There are critics, as you can imagine, to any potential action. Take a listen to Colonel Peters today on Fox.
This is about President Obama shooting off his mouth about red lines, painting himself into a corner. Now he wants to restore his credibility. You have to plan for what comes next. Suppose the president decided on serious military strikes that really weaken the Assad regime. Assad regime collapses. Then you have al-Qaeda, the Jabhat al-Nusra folks, the other Salafist extremists, Islamist extremists, grab the city of Damascus, one of the 3 most important cities in the Arab world. Then what does the president do? I don't see any strategic interest of the United States in Syria whatsoever.
So your reaction to that?
The facts don't support what Colonel Peters is saying. Jabhat al-Nusra is up in northern Syria consolidating what they're doing. They're not much involved in the fighting anymore. They're involved in imposing radical Islam on the people. The people are demonstrating against them on a daily basis. The fact of the matter is the moderates are geographically separated from the radicals. We can provide arms to those radicals and I believe strengthen
the moderates, you mean?
Arms to those moderates, absolutely, and strengthen their hand considerably. Listen, we can't guarantee an outcome post-Assad.
But what's the end game? If you let's say you do what you said, what's the end game here? What's the strategic interest of the U.S.?
The strategic interest of the U.S. is a stable regime in Syria, friendly to the United States as a buffer against the Iranians. The strategic objective here should always be the interest of Iran and what it portends for that region. They're using Syria, Iraq, and Lebanon as the beginning of their regional domination. They're all in here in Syria in a way that they've never been anyplace else since they came to power in 1979.
One last thing. You look at polls. Quinnipiac had a poll earlier this summer. Do you think it's in the national interest of the United States to be involved in the conflict in Syria or not? Yes, 27%. No, 61%. If you look at prior military actions, and the list is long, this would be the most disapproval potentially for any military action. As you look at the list, prior U.S. military actions: Libya, Iraq, Afghanistan, Kosovo, Afghanistan again, Haiti, Somalia, Iraq, Libya, Grenada. This is potentially the most disapproval in public opinion prior to any military action.
Well, I don't believe a President of the United States, Commander-in-Chief, who's acting in the national interest of the United States does that on the basis of polls. All that said, it is valuable what you're informing us about. I believe the reason those polls exist the way they do is the huge amount of misinformation about what's going on there, the chaos among the rebels. There's going to be no stable outcome. Colonel Peters' comments are part of that, and there's a lot of people that hold those comments. They're just not factual.
Okay. And you think it happens sooner rather than later?
Oh, yeah.